Afternoon and welcome to the Envision Coeur dAlene workshop. If we have roll call, Shannon, please.
Ms. Eden?
Here.
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 Okay. Sean, I guess you're going to give us a presentation and an update.
All right. That
Great.
was a quick intro. Thank you, everybody. This is the welcome and agenda overview slide that I have here ready for us. So, the agenda for today's meeting, we intend to cover the following subjects concerning the Envision Coeur dAlene project. And I'd like to start off first before we dive in with saying Happy New Year to everybody. I don't think I've seen your faces in 2022. Hopefully it's healthy, happy, and prosperous for everyone. So today, the presentation and discussion will be the Envision Coeur dAlene plan. There are 4 parts to this plan. Plan background and organization. That's kind of the how and why this plan came to be about Coeur dAlene, or that's the current state of our city. The policy and implementation appendix, which is part 3. We can go over that further down in the presentation. And part 4, land use and design. We'll wrap up my presentation with the mock staff report so you can see how the rubber hits the road and where this fits into the public hearing findings. We'll talk a little bit about the next steps for our project, and then we'll open it up for some discussion and then close.
All right, thanks.
So, project recap. It's been a little while since we're through the holiday season since we've talked to you guys about this. Staff has been very busy working on the policy portion of the plan in conjunction with MIG, who's putting together the draft plan, which will be available on the 25th, as was sent to you in the memo that we sent out last week. So the goal is to refresh Planning Commission on the overarching elements of the plan as a precursor to our joint meeting. So, why do we do this? You know, the how and why is right now a comprehensive planning in Idaho. So the state of Idaho requires all counties and cities in the great state of Idaho to develop a 20-year comprehensive plan that is designed to help guide growth by providing direction for land use decision. It does not limit cities to that specifically, and you can expand on that through the city or the state code, which I'll read the duties of right now. So this is why we do this. Title 67, State Government and Idaho State Affairs, Chapter 65, Local Land Use Planning. So planning duties. It shall be the duty of the Planning or Planning and Zoning Commission to conduct a comprehensive planning process designed to prepare, implement, and review and update a comprehensive plan, hereafter referred to as the plan. The plan shall include all land within the jurisdiction of the governing board. The plan shall consider previous and existing conditions, trends, compatibility of land uses, desirable goals and objectives, or desirable future situations for each planning component. The plan with maps, charts, and reports shall be based on the following components, and they may apply to land use regulations and actions unless the plan specifies reasons why a particular component is unneeded. So we get those directions from the state, and the state says, you know, go forth and create your plan. And so what does this plan look like? And so last time around, the city created a comprehensive plan that was very city-based internally. And after that time that we passed that in early 2008, there was another entity that came to be, which is Coeur dAlene 2030. And so this time around, we decided to have a unified vision between those two groups to create the Envision Coeur dAlene plan. And so the plan will be the city's of Coeur dAlene state mandated comprehensive plan to 2040 and the 2030 updated vision and implementation plan. So let's discuss that. Part 1 is the plan background and organization. As part of the 4 parts, this is the first one, which is comprehensive planning in Idaho. There's 17 state required elements. And that's from what I was just reading earlier. And so inside of the plan, you can see here highlighted in red are each one of those 17 required elements. and then following is where those elements can be found inside of the plan. And so of those 17, we have property rights. That is in the plan, as well as what our population is and our population projection. There's some discussion about school facilities as well as transportation. The transportation element, if you'll remember, we had discussions on that. We worked with, it was Kittleson, and they looked at what the future land use would be and how that would relate to growth. So they provided us a pretty in-depth study showing us over time what that could, how that could impact our transportation system. Economic development, this was another item that was identified early on in the plan development, and we decided to take a deeper dive with Bridge Economic Development, who is one of our sub-consultants, and there is a separate there's a separate report on the economic development and where we sit in the marketplace. So land use is another one. That's where our land use, future land use map comes from. There's also some current land use information in there. Natural resources, hazardous areas, public service facilities, and utilities. This piece is referenced in our plan, but you'll see all of the master plans we have for our Parks Department, Water Department, Sewer Department. Those will be referenced rather than having them in two places where if they update theirs, we have to update ours. It'll reference it through the design of this plan. Transportation, talked to you about that already. Recreation, we do have a portion of that. Special use areas and sites, housing, community design, agriculture, the implementation of the plan, national interest electric transmission corridors, and airport public facilities. So that one, we do not have an airport inside of the city, but we do have one close by, and they have their own master plan that we will point to for that one. Another thing too is for the electric transmission corridors. I got a hold of Avista as well as KEC, and there is no national interest electric transmission corridors inside of the city of Coeur d'Alene. So that one is mentioned in the plan, but we do not have any. So let's discuss for a moment about developing the plan's foundation. We've had a lot of meetings, I'll put it that way. Lots of meetings, a ton of surveys. That included the Community Advisory Committee, focus groups, the Envision Coeur d'Alene, through our consultant and our leadership committees, the stakeholders, which include the city itself and the public. So this should be familiar. This has been presented to you numerous times over the last 2 years, where we started off from the kickoff phase, phase 2, analysis and preferences, and then right around phase 3, we had this. So we were meeting physically, and things changed. We switched gears, and most things went online. We became very familiar with Zoom and how that worked, and MIG switched gears as well. Through our scope, it was determined that the city staff would work on the public outreach part of that, and they switched gears and started helping us with that since we had a pandemic. So winter spring 2021 was developing the comprehensive plan itself, and then phase 5 is adoption, which is where we are right now. And you can see that was anticipated to happen in the summer of 2021, but things changed. So we're at winter spring of 2022, and we're getting to the end. So here is a graphic showing all of the things that we have done. MIG, working with staff, we do have an 843-page long document that goes through all of the stuff that we have done. I have that here if anyone wants to delve into that, but it's a big document. So we have been there and done that. So part 2, about Coeur d'Alene. So this is our current status as a city, and a little bit of our history as well. This includes all of these bullet points here. So population, income, employment, education, our economic development and market position, which I talked about. land use, housing, and community design, where we are currently, as well as what city departments we have, utilities, and our parks and recreation. That also includes our transportation networks that we can talk about here in a little bit. So this is what it looks like inside of the plan. I won't go into details for each and every one of them, but there's some great graphics here showing where growth is happening, both for residential and commercial, and then what the community demographics are. This also includes some transportation, which is the underlying throughout all of these three is our transportation elements, which is the streets. It also includes trails, bicycles, sidewalks, and transit. That can also be found later when we talk about the mock staff report. So part 3 is the policy document. If you remember back when we started putting this together, one of our very first tasks was to create a vision statement for the city. And it's changed since 2007. This is important enough that I will read it verbatim. I know it's on the screen as well. So here we go. Coeur d'Alene is the vibrant heart of North Idaho. Together, we foster a community of excellence that cultivates activity, partnerships, and innovation. As the region's cultural and economic center, our growth is balanced by an attainable cost of living, regional health care, diverse employment and advancement opportunities, and quality education options. We strive to protect our spectacular lake and water resources, connected green spaces, rich history, and healthy lifestyles that set Coeur d'Alene apart. Our residents are committed to our future and the legacy we celebrate. And it also goes on to say that the city of Coeur d'Alene and its residents value the diversity of our community and the inclusion of all voices. It is important for us all to have the courage to stand together, unite, and understand that our differences make us stronger. So that took a long time to get there. We had probably 3 or 4 meetings just for that. And I think it really does identify where we want to go over the next 20 years. I know a couple of these elements, especially cost of living, has changed quite a bit. And this is the future that we see and what we strive for. So. And also as part of part 3, we have 6 categories inside of the plan. These came from Coeur d'Alene 2030's plan, and so we adapted all of the existing objectives and goals that we had in our 2007 plan into here, as well as information that we received through all of our public feedback to identify in each one of these categories, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but these are those 6 categories. So under each one of those categories, we have goals, objectives, and actions. And under the actions, it's important to note that we have 3 ways to identify who the convening authority is. It is either the city of the Coeur d'Alene, Coeur d'Alene 2030, which they will maintain their own unique identity and have their own implementation plan separate from ours, but will include the joint. So both of our plans will include the joint, but the city will have its own plus the ones that we share with Coeur d'Alene 2030. So the part 4, which is land use and design, this is where like I mentioned earlier, the rubber hits the road for decisions. This is where future land use map starts coming into play and what you see in your staff reports. It also includes a new thing, which is place types that was not in our 2007 plan. We had, I think, 2 or 3 meetings about place types and the land use map as well. It also includes special areas and recreation and natural areas. So what does that look like? So the future land use map. Here it is in its entirety. You will remember back when we first started doing this, we had 3 different scenarios that we worked on. It was compact corridors and district, and that helped generate the transportation element of this as well. So we ended up doing a blend. So we decided, well, none of these 3 specifically fits what our future needs will be. We want to see a blend of these. Sometimes it's very important that the corridor came into play for like I-90 and then 95 North. in town, but we also wanted to have some districts, and we wanted to be able to grow into the future without impacting too much into the hillsides, which are hazardous areas. So we made a blend of those, and here we are. You can see these land use types right here on the right in the colors that display what the place types are. And so here's an example of a place type. This is the one from the mock staff report that I'll talk about in a moment. But as a part of this, the key characteristics will identify what that may look like. Nothing limits a future land use into, that's more dictated by the market itself, but here is what we would expect to see. And the transportation element of that, so when these go in, what we would like to have nearby, so as you make your decisions, you'll take a look at that, and then the compatible zonings. So what is that underlying zoning for the official zoning map for the city of Coeur d'Alene? The uses that would be expected in the building types. There's also a piece here that talks about density, lot size, and then what sort of open space we'd see, as well as a visual graphic representing what that place type looks like. So there's a number of different types of place types inside of here. There's all of these, from single family to a compact to an urban neighborhood. It shows which of the zones that they're compatible with. There's some commercial, which is the mixed use districts. There's also downtown, a retail center and corridor, employment centers, which is a larger box style development. You see some of that in Riverstone, as well as further down Celtice. Neighborhood centers, which was formerly nodes inside of our old plan. So, how can we fit some light commercial uses inside of neighborhoods so that people do not have to walk far to get some very basic elements that they may need, such as bread and milk and that sort of thing. There are two on here that I didn't put in because one of them is under construction, and then the other one is Civic, which is complete, but that made for a very boring slide so by itself. So we have Civic and Historic, and those are also two place types that you will see when we get you the full draft plan before our next meeting on the 25th. So here are some pictures of what some of those place types end up looking like, and we have larger lot, single family. We have higher density residential uses that provide amenities inside of here. This is further north. We have some mixed use where you'd have residential on top, office space and retail below, a commercial corridor, a more compact single-family house type use, and then this one is very close to our downtown where the amenities are close by, such as the library and the park and things of that nature. The trail is there as well, Centennial Trail. So why do we do this? We do this for our citizens. We do it for our visitors. We do it for our families, that we grow not in a haphazard way, but in a very thought about way over the next 20 years. So another piece of part 4 is special recreation, natural and hazardous areas, and you can see there's a whole lot of them inside of here. And so these, especially the ones on this side, are not the hazard ones. These are our special areas. You can see East Sherman in our downtown, the education corridor, which still has many years before it reaches fruition, but they have made some great strides forward as they grow in that area, which is the PUD. Many of you sat up here and reviewed that. The Health Corridor Master Plan, which is coming forward, that one is just getting off the ground. Atlas Waterfront is fully underway right now. Upcoming ones like core housing. So, how are we going to grow into the future? That infill, where does it make sense to have some additional density? Where does it make sense to provide some additional product types versus just single family, duplex, and then high-density apartments. The historic element of this, we recently passed a historic preservation ordinance, so we're working in conjunction with that to build it into our plan and then our existing infill overlay districts. We do have some hazardous areas inside of the city of Coeur d'Alene. We have a lot of shorelines. We have a lake and a river. Hillsides can create some difficult development, anything over 15% slope. We do have a specific code and a way that we build inside of those areas. We identify that in the comprehensive plan. Our aquifer, it's our lifeblood of the area. It's where we get our water from. It's important we protect that. We included that in the plan. Views and vistas, we need to protect those as much as we possibly can. We live in a beautiful area, so it's nice to be able to see it from when you're in town. Can course, this is a pretty new one. This is a great piece that will be added up in the northeast corner of town, and it allows for public access and recreation. Urban forestry, we're Tree City USA, so that's an important element of our plan, as well as a newer one here, which is the wildland urban interface, what we call or refer to as a WUI, fireland protections inside of our hillsides, where there's a lot of tree cover and making sure that we don't create dangerous fire situations and try and mitigate those as we move along this 20-year plan. And then our flood areas, that's largely through FEMA flood maps, and making sure we pay close attention to that, because we do get a decent amount of water throughout the year. So how does this look inside of an actual staff report? So are the required findings going to be the same? So yes, the findings aren't changing. That is based inside of City Code in Title 17. Here's an example of the language that you see inside of there, is that the proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and policy is as follows. And then where does this apply to? So for our public hearings, this applies to our annexations, our special use permits, planned unit developments, including limited design PUDs, as well as zone changes. And then how will the staff reports change? And so as part of this packet that I sent out, there is a mock staff report inside of there with the elements of the new comprehensive plan built into it, as far as we could with the existing information that we have. We will be getting, at the end of this, some GIS information that will help us dive down a little bit deeper than what's in here. But you can take a look, and I believe it's on, starts on page 6 of the staff report there. So the required findings, the 2021 comprehensive plan land use category. So, is the subject property inside of city limits, and what is the category that it falls into? That new category would be compact neighborhood. I did show that before. Inside the future land use map, there's the entire city, and now we're zoomed in a little bit more. This is for Habitat for Humanity, if you remember back. This is a piece that they purchased that was currently R12. They were asking for R17. So this is a compact neighborhood that identifies where it is and what that category is, and then what the transportation elements are. So inside of here, you can see the subject property and where it's located. There's existing a bicycle lane that's very close by on Niter, as well as the sidewalks that are close by, and then how close is it to our existing transportation or transit element, which is CityLink, and where their routes are in relation to this request. Here is that place type. You saw this one earlier, but there's also a description of what a compact neighborhood is and where it's compatible. So, comprehensive goals, objectives, and action items. So this is part of the policy document. So for this specific request, community and identity would be a part of that. It was goal CI3, which is Coeur d'Alene will strive to be livable for median and below income levels, including young families, working class, low income, and fixed income households. So as a part of that, that's what Habitat for Humanity strives for. And objective 3.1 would be to support efforts to preserve existing housing stock and provide opportunities for new affordable and workforce housing. Under growth and development, which is part of the 6 different focus areas, We have GD1, which is develop a mix of land uses throughout the city that balance housing and employment while preserving the qualities that make Coeur d'Alene a great place to live, with the objective 1.1, achieve a balance of housing product types and price points, including affordable housing to meet city needs. So with that, that kind of discusses what the plan is about, the overarching elements of the plan, ran through quickly what that may look like inside of a future staff report. Is there any questions for staff? I guess we can open it up for discussion.
John, go ahead. Yeah.
Very good presentation, Sean. I really appreciate your effort, your leadership over this comprehensive plan. You know, I think has been headed in the right direction. I think it's in my opinion, pretty much ready to go.
Thank you.
A couple of comments, and I will have a question. You know, I really liked how you did the mock staff report. It really illustrates how we're going to, see this new plan before us. You know, and we've sat up here, I think, and we've longed for a better tool, a better prism, if you will, to pass these projects through, particularly, these infill projects that are I think, going to be more plentiful, because that's where the growth is really going to go. You know, we never had a land use map. We've never had place types before, and it's really a lot more specific. And we can take a look at the project that comes before us, like the one that you have in your sample mock staff report, and have a pretty good judge of that. And so I think it's going to be a great tool because, infill has been one of the central narratives of this whole deal, and I think that's a big part of the future. Question that I'll have saying that, what about some of these special areas, for example? What if I took a different mock project before you? Years ago there was the idea of some project that was going to go above Copper Ridge, if you remember where that is. It was going to go up Canfield Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Or let's say it's going to be Armstrong 2. We're going to expand beyond there into the trees, a whole nother annexation thing back in there or whatnot. So in that case, I'm not sure that this land use map will be the only prism of sorts or place types, but how when let's say we see a project like that in the future that's up in the hills, and you have these special areas you called, how would those be handled different than the mock example? Would there be some additional criteria that we would use to judge a project like that I'm describing?
Sure, and some of that we do today. Largely we reference what our Hillside Code is, and so in a staff report that you would see under our current plan, it would identify, hey, if it's over 15% slope, our Hillside Code applies. Here's what the Hillside Code is. We review that at the time of building permit. It requires a geotechnical report and a tree survey and those sorts of things. There is that hillside element now, and we did have a little bit of that in our old plan. We would include it from time to time, where it does talk about the necessity to review a hillside code and where they are, a hillside request and where they are in the city. That is in this plan as well. I do have the older draft that I sent you. I can pull that up if you would like, but it is an element of that plan. So it's two-pronged. It's partially in the plan that describes what the hillsides are and where they are, and then the second piece is the actual code itself when it comes time for a building permit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I noticed we have the existing and planned trail and bicycle and the existing and planned walking network. Then we get to the existing transit and there's no planned. I got an issue with that. I think we have to, when we're going to be building higher density, fill in, more people, more cars. I'm not a fan of cars, and I'm not a fan of blacktop. We have the infrastructure, we have the roadways. Why are we not improving what the tribe gave us, which was routes? They do a loop bus system. Why are we not having Ramsey Road all the way from the top of it to the bottom of it down Sherman? Why are we not moving people on Atlas and buses? Why are we not moving people across major thoroughfares and moving people in the bus, in a regular bus service, not a long loop? Oh, great, I'm going to get downtown, but I'm going to be 45 minutes getting the loop instead of going up and down. Get you home, get you down, get you back for. We're not seeing a future here, and I'm seeing a future where we've got car problems already, and I'm seeing no preemptive strike here to get ahead of that. And I think that we have a surplus in our state, and I think we ought to go after funding to get a proper mental change of how you live your life. I lived in Washington, D.C. 7 years. I never owned a car. I rode the metro, I rode the bus, I got on my bike. I don't get it here. We've got all these other things addressed, but we're lacking a future bus system. And we should be able to move, I should be able to get on Celtice here and get to Post Falls and get on the bottom of wherever, Government Way would be a great arterial to get all the way from our Civic Center all the way up to Hayden City Hall and not have to get in a car, not have to park a car, and not get backed up. We've got backups on all our streets. 95 is now backing up all the way from Apple Way, all the way to Prairie almost. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't move in the right-hand lane. So I think that we need to get that as part of this as well. I think it's a big miss, big miss. So that's my only criticism of all of this is where is transit other than a car or a bike?
Right, and, that is a very good point. The city is not CityLink, we are partners with CityLink.
Right.
And so we are limited by funding, we are limited by a number of things, but we do work with them. Hillary and I have gone out and sat on a CityLink bus and went and did their route, and we're asking those same questions, and
It's
it
bigger.
boils
They
down
gave us a
to dollars
kickstart.
in ridership
They gave
is
us a
big part of
kickstart,
it.
and it behooves us to save the environment, save our ground and our asphalt, and save our roadways, and get us on buses. An easy bus, and I see people, I've been watching people, handicapped students, sitting in snowbanks waiting for the bus that never comes. We need to have people get on, get down, get to do what they need to do, make it an efficient part of our culture. And we move from big cities and come here and go, oh, shoot, now I'm back in a car. What am I doing to help the environment? I'm doing nothing. So I think
Right.
that we need to make a better environmental thrust as well. And we're missing that. And I think it behooves us to give our children clean air, and that means getting us out of a car. And we love our trucks here. We'll never turn to electric at this point. But we got to give it up. We got to get people happy with getting on a bus. Older people too. They shouldn't be. A lot of 80-year-olds shouldn't be driving a car. They really eyes, ears, hearing, acuity. Get in a bus. It's safe. I mean, my mother lived in Vancouver. Never had a car. Never drove a car. It's possible. It's just we need to get our mindset into that.
Right.
And we are not. And it's a big missing puzzle piece here, in my estimation.
May I clarify a little bit
Sure.
of that too?
Go ahead,
Sean did
Hillary.
a great job answering that. But there are at least 2 action items in the implementation plan for the document talking about the partnership with CityLink and the effort that they already have underway that's looking at the future of transit in the community. And they are actively seeking funding for not only improving the network, expanding the network, adding efficiencies like you talked about, but also the covered bus stops. So
And connect other cities. I mean,
Right.
why can we not
So
get
that
to Post
is in
Falls?
our plan, but like Sean said, we're kind of limited. We're just one of the partners.
We are,
But they
but I
are
think
working
we
on
need
it,
to
and it
push
is
harder.
it
I
is
think
in our plan.
We're the big populace here, and we need to push harder. And we're building more homes and more affordable housing. Those people don't always own cars. We're sticking them way out on the prairie. How are we going to get them into town? And where are they going? Are they going to Post Falls? Are they going to, we need to connect our cities, not just by a singular roadway system. We're in the dark ages here. And I appreciate what the tribe did. It was a kickstart. Now we need to run with the ball, and we're not doing it. So that's my estimation.
Peter, and I'll get you.
Well, I just have a question to follow up on that. What can we, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, do to assist in this? This is a rather large project. Washington DC, that transit it took a while to evolve many years ago, I'm sure. It's very appropriate. The sooner one starts it, the better it will be. You wait to redesign roads when you can't buy any land, it causes problems. And the longer we delay on developing a transit system, the more expensive it will be. It will not be an easy job,
Nope.
but, whatever, as a planning commission, whatever I can do as a member to encourage the city and the community, maybe 2030, maybe the state. But if we don't address this soon, as former Commissioner Rumpler used to say, is I don't want Coeur d'Alene to be like Bend, and it will be. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I apologize for being late.
No problem.
And so if this question was covered earlier, I apologize. You mentioned the implementation plan, which has some of those details. Does that come to, this is the plan and the structure that we make a recommendation for approval at City Council, but is the implementation plan at a level of detail where we also see that? You mentioned for transport, there's some elements and activities in there. So that's one question. To what extent is that available to us to look at, even if we don't approve it per se? And the second one is, how does our comprehensive plan align with or tie into regional efforts? So KMPO, obviously we have to act as our own entity, but are there activities or objectives that are aligned with regional efforts in any way? Besides transportation or in addition to transportation?
To answer your question, yes. And we had a lot of discussions about that. And so the implementation plan, I'll go to the first part of that, which is the implementation plan through Coeur d'Alene 2030 and the efforts of the city, we had identified where each one of us kind of lives. And so the city, we have influence within our city border, within the corporate city limits. And outside of that, that's where Coeur d'Alene 2030 has a little more influence, and why you saw in that slide where I had the Venn diagram where the joint ones are. And so, the one represents where our efforts can lie and where we have influence, and then Coeur d'Alene 2030 are those more regional elements that you were talking about. To answer the second portion of your question is the policy document itself, and when you'll get to review that. Right after this meeting, we're having another meeting and sending what we have to MIG to get them to put that into the plan as part 3. Right now, We've been working on that for the last 5 months. It's been a very long and hard effort to get everybody on board. But each one of you worked on this under your own elements, so we have our 6 focus groups, and everyone was a part of one of those focus groups in the CAC, and we put that out in front of the public in numerous forms as we've refined that over time. And so, we were pushing, and we brought it to the executive team, where we're pushing almost 260 action items over 20 years, and it's a lot. And so we were looking at, well, where can we combine? Where can we be more efficient? Which ones can change or combine? And so that's what we've been working on. So it has been out to the public. It was generated by the input of this board, the public, our old plan. So if you want a copy, I do have where we are right now, but it's just not placed into the plan, which is why we said you would have that by the 25th for our joint meeting.
Go ahead.
Does that answer
You
your
had
question?
mentioned that the city has a certain area of influence and so forth, authority, and 2030 has a broader one.
Correct.
Broader than the city?
Yeah, they can act as more of a regional entity. So they can help bring things like, water beyond city limits, just our shorelines. They can look at the bigger picture of the lake itself. They look at the tribe and how we get along with the tribe and our relationship with them, as well as, what the county, Post Falls, so more of a regional
Well,
influence.
that's fine. but I also believe that part of this is a political process.
Sure.
And our mayor and council are elected by our residents. The mayor and council of other jurisdictions are elected by their resident. And if I were, want something done with Post Falls, I'd come down and I'd ask our council, why don't you meet with Post Falls and see if you can work something out? Now, does that mean that we're going to work something out between Post Falls, the tribe, or that we don't go to our council, that we go to 2030?
Well, I guess the way I view it is we have each one of these entities in itself, and those are the cogs in the machine, if you will. And Coeur d'Alene 2030 is that lubrication that helps us get to the table and have these discussions and identify what are the highest priorities of the area to do exactly what you just said when somebody gets up here and says, hey, well, did you go and talk to Post Falls about whatever this is, a connectivity or whatever the subject of the day would be, then Coeur d'Alene can help get those people together. So
More so than just you, the planning department, going to Post Falls and trying to work it out direct. You have to go through an intermediary.
like you said, it's a political thing, so it takes a lot of effort. So it may not always be Coeur d'Alene 2030. It certainly would stem from us reaching out to other entities that are close by.
So if I have an issue with 2030, how do I present that issue to them? As a
That,
citizen of the general area?
they have their own regional meetings. I know Hillary sits on the board. Would you feel comfortable answering that?
So are they elected?
Oh, and I'm going to go back a little bit.
I understand, I don't mean to be confrontational, but I have a great faith in the people we elect. Okay.
So I just want to clarify, first of all, on the action items. So we've identified convening authorities. So there's city is convening some, CDA 2030 is convening others. CDA 2030, I think, is only identified in maybe 2 action items as a lead partner. They really get other partners together. Their action items, they're just kind of helping shepherd the process, right? So these are priorities that our community members have said are priorities. And so they are basically pulling together the right people so that in the future that action item can be implemented. And so their plan, as Sean mentioned, has their action items that might be broader than our reach as a city or as kind of a regional partner. And then there's the joint ones. So a lot of them, actually the lake management, we're a joint partner on that one, on some of those. So there's ones with that, with the tribe and economic development, we're a joint partner. So those are in our plan as well. There's a lot that are, you'll see, where we are going beyond just our corporate boundaries and partnering with other agencies, including open space on the prairie, things that we're working with the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. So I think that hopefully will help answer that for you. So those action items in CDA 2030's plan, they're not all, CDA 2030 is not going to implement them all. They're going to work with partners that we have reached out to that have said, yes, this is my action item, I'm willing to take this on.
So I, as John Q. citizen, if I have a big issue with 2030, I can come up and go before you or council and express my concern, and then the council can take whatever action they deem appropriate.
Yes, that's one way. I mean, it's a nonprofit, and so it kind of operates under its own organizational
I just want to know the
procedures.
process, again, not confrontational, but if I have an issue with them, who, can I bring it to my elected official and let them, and they can say, gee, Pete, that's really good, but we don't want to address it, that's fine. At least I feel more
I do
comfortable
that.
with elected.
I think if a comment, it's similar to what we started with the affordable housing group that Kiki Miller started. I mean, that wasn't anything that was out there before, and it was an issue for the general public, whether it was just Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls or whatever city. So they formed this group amongst themselves and started it and got people involved in that. So I would imagine a similar type of group would get together if there's a particular issue a number of citizens might be concerned about, whether it's transportation, let's say we have that. So, maybe they form a group and get 2030 involved, because 2030, they have their fingers out a little bit more than what we might have in the city. We're concerned with all areas, but the city can only do what it can do within the city limits. And then after that, you got to go broader and get more volunteer groups, more people, someone to run that group and reach out. So I think that's probably some sort of a process that we can start up with any issue, with
I can
anyone.
probably help with that as well. I serve on the board of CDA 2030. I think any board member would be happy for someone to email the executive director and ask a question, and help learn more about a particular initiative that they're working on. Most of the items I think that you're thinking of, we're going to be a joint partner with 2030 because there is some element of that objective that falls within city. So maybe transportation's a good example. There's lots of the roadways and stuff that the city would definitely need to be a partner, but they're not the only partner leading it. So then CDA 2030 is jointly helping reach out to those other partners and fill that regional circle. As far as 2030 isn't necessarily an authority on any of the particular action items, the few that they have, and it's probably less than 10, that are just CDA 2030 are ones that there maybe the community has identified as something, we want to see in the future, but there's not a really clear leading person on that yet, and they just want to make sure that, the community identified need is still, there, and it'll bubble up when we find a partner that'll work on that, and we don't take it off the list. So there's very few of those. Most of them, the city is going to be a joint partner with because some element falls within the city, and that's the ones that you'll see in the joint section. And I don't know, Hillary could probably estimate the number of hours of meetings that this has happened, but we had the same conversation in one of our meetings recently. It's just, and the amount of time and people at the table that have been trying to identify who should be the convening authority. And that's more of, so that there is one point person, and then they can delegate to what partners are involved. So a lot of these are definitely more than one person involved, and that would be why they're joint.
And Sarah, on that, when you say partners, kind of, for the sake of who not understand what partners are, it isn't individual, it's more companies? What is partners
I mean, it
defined
could be a
as?
number of things. I guess if you're looking at transportation, you would have most likely CA 2030 and the city as a joint partner.
And any
And then
other city?
supporting partners would be CityLink and, other regional, maybe KMPO would be a regional group that would be helping with transportation, City of Post Falls, City of Hayden, so they would be supporting partners in that. So the list kind of gets long. Some of them might have upwards of 15 partners for a regional action. But then you might have one, the trail system, for example, there might be some objective that is related directly to city trails. And then they might have supporting partners like some of the users of the CAN course or some users of a trail system, Centennial Trail, would be a supporting partner, even though City of Coeur d'Alene is just the lead for what's within city limits. So I guess those might be examples.
Oh, great, thanks.
That was a very good explanation. Thank you, Commissioner McCracken. If you, too, like I said earlier, where the rubber hits the road, and so you brought up a very specific one, which was, lake health. And so you can see here inside, and this is where those actions and goals and objectives are. I'll bring your attention here to number 37. For some reason, it doesn't really want to get much bigger, but you can see under environment and recreation, we have a goal, which is ER1, which is preserve and enhance the beauty and health of Coeur d'Alene's natural environment. The objective would be to improve the water quality of Coeur d'Alene Lake and Spokane River by reducing the use of fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and managing aquatic invasive plant and fish species. This is just the number that's associated with this. You can see this is joint. So the city is a part of that. Coeur d'Alene 2030 is part of that. And we are the convening authorities inside of our plans for this. You can see that the actual lead partner is RGEM, Coeur d'Alene Lake Collaborative, and then there's supporting partners, which is Coeur d'Alene Lakeshore Property Owners Association, City of Coeur d'Alene Panhandle Health District, and then the action would be to coordinate with agencies and governments, including the state of Idaho, the Coeur d'Alene tribe, the city of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County to increase education and awareness and to manage and reduce nutrient loading and runoff to lakes and streams, such as promoting the proper use of fertilizers near bodies of water and residential yards where stormwater can carry chemicals into drains that drain into the lake and the river. And so that's one very specific item. And you can see, I'll go back over here, that this goal is, runs across multiple actions. And so that preserve and enhance the beauty of the health of the Coeur d'Alene Lake, you can see there's multiple objectives and multiple actions that fall under that. So they're categorized, as my slide was saying.
This is part of the 388-page document that you're reading to us there?
No, this is part of part 3, which is the policy document. So the 381 is just a master list of all the things that we've done from beginning to end.
So we're getting something on the 25th.
Yeah, actually, right before
In advance
that.
of it,
In
yeah.
advance, yeah.
Is that going to be included in that?
Yes, yeah. And this is what we've brought to the public and had numerous surveys on and gotten feedback on.
Good.
And also on that, so this is the detail in the implementation plan, which is a state requirement of a comprehensive plan. For the planning commission, you aren't going to really get into the action items ever. So I think the staff reports are going to keep it at the goal and objective level. The actions is really how do we implement those objectives and goals? And so that's just something that we're required to do, and we're identifying the partners and will be adopted with the plan, but you won't personally be looking at that very often.
Let me go on public record here. Saying that sometimes we like to get in things that, is really staff. So I will feel comfortable if you rule me out of order if we start getting into some of the details, encroaching on what this is the staff's responsibility. That's very important. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Sean? No? So where do we go from here, Sean?
All right, let me get back. So this slide. So our tentative schedule, the upcoming steps. So on January 25th, we're going to have a joint work session. That'll include Planning Commission as well as City Council. That will be that last hurrah before, and there's no public input at this point. There will be public input on February 8th, which is going to be the formal hearing that will come before the Planning Commission. That is the first comprehensive planning hearing. You will make a recommendation to City Council to approve this plan, hopefully. And then we're on a quick march here. So on February 15th, then City Council will hear it. That will be the second comprehensive plan hearing and hopefully plan adoption. And then we'll get all the information and the final documents from MIG and put that into our GIS and present it to the public.
And has city council been updated prior to January 25th? Are they going to be, because I know they were updated at one point in time. I don't know how far back that was.
We've done a number, done a number of updates, and we've had videos. We're going to share with them some of those same videos, refreshers, and ask them to also watch today's workshop, just because I think it'll be beneficial for them too, just to kind of understand, remember where we've been,
Right.
why we're doing this, and then again, this mock staff report is really helpful for them as well.
Prior to our meeting on
Prior to the 25th, yeah, we're
Okay,
going to ask
great.
them
Good.
to review that as well.
Excellent. Okay.
All right.
What else? Go ahead.
I have a question on process. So we've been after, on this about 2.5 years, and we've had an awful lot of people involved over a period of time. Some of them started when we were up here at the Innovation Center, and we talked about different things, including a bike path down the middle of East Sherman. That was just a concept, and there's a lot of enthusiasm there and a lot of interest, and it continued on. Is there going to be any effort by the city to bring those groups back together in some fashion to give them an update, to tell them where we are, and maybe you've already done this, before we have the item before us at the Planning Commission?
So we did that, and we had a virtual open house as well as the opportunity to contact staff to meet in person with anyone. At the time that we did that, it was still difficult to find a venue big enough to house everyone with the pandemic that we were having. And so we had reached out to NIC. It just didn't work at the time. And so we had a two-pronged effort. We had one where people could Zoom in, and we had a few people Zoom in. It wasn't widely attended. You know, the feedback that we got is, hey, we've given our input a number of times. The last time that we reached out to the public through one of these things, we got maybe 15% of what we had seen earlier through the surveys that we had. And some of the comments were, hey, I've taken the survey now. This is the third time, like we're ready, you know, bring it forward. And so we have received that feedback.
And,
Go ahead,
well,
Sarah.
Sean, and I want to clarify, I guess, a little bit, that the three different, CDA 2030, the city and joint goals, that was a change after the open houses at the end of June, beginning of July. So that was feedback taken of, hey, some of the CDA 2030 stuff doesn't really fit the city, or maybe isn't within our jurisdiction, and so those things were separated off, and then they identified the city and the joint actions. So that effort, which has been incredibly tedious, was part of the feedback received, and hopefully delineates for everybody, I guess, who's responsible for those items.
And Sean, on the February 8th and February 15th, there will be public comments at that time for the
There will
public
be.
to make comments if they want to.
At both meetings.
Right, so there will be a chance for public comment. How that would affect anything, we won't know until those days happen, but go ahead, John.
I want to reiterate this. I think the value and the importance of this mock staff report thing, if you will. And I think when it's time to, maybe council takes the time to read their packet, and maybe they're a little busy that week, but maybe kind of walk them through it a little bit more. I think you've trusted that we did our homework and whatnot. But I think this is really valuable. We've never had a land use map. We've never had these categories of land use types. And I think that's really powerful. And I think, I can't remember how many times we've talked up on this panel here of, a better comp plan would give us better, guidance or whatnot. I think we have that now. And you can just sit here and take you walk them through this maybe, and this is a real life multi-family project that was up there across from Costco. And in this case, it was and is in a compact neighborhood. But you could just pretend for a minute that, okay, let's take the same project and stick it in a single-family neighborhood. See how that shakes out. Oh, let's take it in a historic neighborhood. Let's take it over here, and it would shake out so much differently that, we've had a comp plan that's pretty general, that's pretty vague in some ways. I think this really directs where density and growth within the existing established city should be directed. I think this really gives us that guidance. And folks are also concerned justifiably about protection of existing neighborhoods, protection of historic areas and whatnot. And this is going to do that. Because again, if the same project that's in this draft staff report, mock staff report, what if you just retooled it and put it in a historic area real quick, all of a sudden some other things are going to come to play, right? Or if someone was trying to propose it into an existing single-family neighborhood redo, it would sort of raise other flags there. So I really encourage you to maybe walk the council through this.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback, Ron.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, also on the 25th, I just wanted to mention that CDA 2030 will be there as well. And so they'll be able to make some opening remarks and kind of just talk about the partnership and the value of that, and I'll speak to that as well. And then you'll get to meet the new executive director, JJ Odell of CDA 2030. So it'll be a great opportunity
Oh, great, thanks. Good information. Okay, if we have nothing else for Sean, I'll call the meeting adjourned and move on to the 25th. So,
Thank you for your time, everyone.
thank you, Sean, appreciate it.
Good rest of your day.
Is that midday?
Thanks.
Is that midday? Is it midday?
What time is the meeting on the 25th, Hillary?
Is it 3 p.m.? Is that
3
right?
p.m.? Yes.
And we'll have a handout before that?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I can have a motion to adjourn?
Sorry. I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
So have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank
So-
you.
So that